I didn't get the part. Geneviève Bujold, the great French-Canadian actress, got the part. Great actress. But after about a day, everybody knows I'm exaggerating just a tiny bit. After about a day, she called the producers into her trailer and she said, I don't know what do you think I am. I mean, this is inhuman. I've been on here for 18 hours and all I get to say is, engage, engage, engage. I have to go, I have a child, I have a life, it's not going to happen here, au revoir, bonne chance, and she was gone. This is my solo panel with Dan. Are you coming, Dan?
Yes.
Good. Wasn't that wonderful? What a surprise. My entire career flashed in front of me. Mary Ryan. I was 19 years old. I've been an actress for 50 years. That's a long time, isn't it? Yeah, long time.
Was that expected? Did you figure, you know, I'm going to come to this? Of course they're going to do a drag number for me, highlighting the biggest...
Not expected and absolutely delicious. Thank you for that. It was great. And a lot of work went into that, you know?
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Especially over Zoom. For them to, and you know,
she's a real pro, this one.
So professional about it, and you know, when opportunities like this come up, I try my best to come up with exciting new ways of doing things, and it, you know, can be very challenging.
Well, that was novel, Dan. So I'm going to ask you a question.
Yes.
Have you ever done anything in drag yourself?
No comment.
How many here have been in drag? And not just for the fun of it, if you know what I mean. Me and you, yeah. It's liberating, isn't it? I think it's liberating. You're wearing a costume, you have a different accent, and you're showing off a part of yourself that is very, very surprising. And gratifying. I loved it. Thank you for that. It was great. Now, this is I don't know how long we have, but don't you think it's very good to take questions, Dan?
That's what I was thinking. How about I go out there?
Yeah, if you go out there and take questions, and that way I can speak to what you want me to speak about.
Who's first? There we go.
Gabby.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I've read your first book, Born with Teeth, at least a dozen times from end to end. It's really inspirational, and I've even shared it with friends, parts of it with friends all over the world, and they found it really motivating also. My question is, in one part of the book, you talk about how Janeway, kind of pushed you forward as Kate Mulgrew, and as Kate Mulgrew, you kind of kept Janeway going. But is there something that she would do that you would never do, or vice versa?
Well, I'm not sure I would have gotten us lost. I think I would have stopped at that gas station. I never would have, I don't think I would have survived 7 years without someone to love, or my children. I would have survived it, but Janeway had a strength, an ardent strength that perhaps Mulgrew lacks. And Mulgrew had a humanity, the love of people, that I endowed Janeway with. And that marriage, are you hearing an echo? Was it disturbing? Or is it sort of weirdly enjoyable? There are many parallels, but where they come together is in their love of adventure. You know, it's a big joke that Janeway always wanted to sort of skip the trouble. Janeway liked the trouble. In fact, she loved the trouble. Anytime there was an alien species she could meet, greet, annihilate, or love, she went for it, right? Her curiosity as a scientist was insatiable. I share that curiosity. Mine is more literary. Janeway's was scientific. But as women, they were much the same. Janeway, I hope, of all the captains, established a new idea of what it is to truly love your crew complement. I loved those guys. I loved those 8 people who served beneath me, and the rest of the complement as well. I'm talking about my lieutenants and my main people. And I think that the male captains perhaps didn't have that to the same extent. But it's a good question. Yeah, I think Mulgrew had to fuel Janeway. Those were hard years for me. I had 2 little boys at home I was raising alone. And Janeway sort of made me stand up, because my mission as Kate Mulgrew playing Janeway was to be the best possible first female captain that I could give them. Because, as I said earlier, I don't know if you were here, I think there were some who were waiting for me to fail. You know, it was such a strong male demographic, such a strong thing about the white, guys and the straight guys, and a woman can't do it. And they were devoted to Picard, as well they should have been. He was a wonderful captain, and Kirk before him. But it was time for a woman. And as it turns out, it was time for this woman. So there you have it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi.
Hi.
Going into this experience as one of Star Trek's first main character female captains, did you expect it to have as much of an impact on women in science as it did?
No. You want to know when I found out? When Mrs. Clinton invited me to the White House at the end of the first season to speak to women in science. She had called a group of female scientists from all over the world. There were about 100, maybe 150 women there. And first she met me in the China room, and we had a little chat, and she said, "Do you know, yours is the only series that Chelsea and I watch. We love Star Trek Voyager. And therefore I thought you would be the most befitting person to address this group of women." Well, I walked out and looked at this sea of arguably the most intelligent faces I've ever seen in my life. And I threw my notes away, and I looked at them and I said, let's share this together. What can you tell me that I don't know? I'm playing a scientist on television, and the fact that I'm playing her with sufficient credibility to have Mrs. Clinton invite me here is enough for me to say, not only thank you, but educate me. What is it that Janeway on television did for you? And the hands went up. It was remarkable to see it. And I called on a young woman. I don't think she could have been 28 years old. And she said, Miss Mulgrew, my father is in NASA. He is an engineer. He wanted to go up. He never made it. I told him I was going up. He said, it's never going to happen. You're a woman. You're going to go into research, like your father, or engineering, and you will find a wonderful job. And then one night, my father called me into the living room, and the television was on, and Star Trek Voyager was playing. He said, you see that woman? She's a captain. I think you can go up. And I went up, she said. Can you imagine? I was just like, I said, do you mean that watching me on Voyager, she said it was enough. It was enough because my father and I would have these, animated conversations about television always being the foot ahead. And it is. Culture leads science, right? We watch. Paramount was very prescient. They were very bold. They knew that in placing me in that seat, I was going to open doors to women in science, but I didn't know it. And the letters that have come in and the affirmations that have come in and the wonderful stories I've both read and heard about and learned in person have arguably been the most gratifying of all of the aspects of Star Trek Voyager. And there were many that were gratifying. Thank you for that question. Yes, sir, you. A gentleman. You wait.
Where are we?
There's that gentleman.
I read How to Forget.
You what?
I read How to Forget, your book. I read it twice because I have a lot of family things that have affected me in my life and have changed my career, and I was so moved by it. That's the compliment part. The question is, are you planning on writing any more books in that similar vein? And how do you feel that your family history, your trauma affected your career?
Thank you for that question. I always love that because you acknowledge that, in fact, I have put pen to paper. How to Forget was tough, writing about my mother's death by Alzheimer's and my father's death by cancer. How many here have been affected by Alzheimer's in one way or another? Look at that. Look at that, Bennett. I always talk to you about the stats. Is that a third of the room, at least? Math is not my strong suit. Don't tell Janeway. Yeah. And by 2050, 5 out of 10 will suffer from this. But I have a theory about it that I'm going to share with you since you brought it up, and which is why I wrote the book. Certainly I wanted to write about grief from the standpoint of an adult daughter burying her parents and assisting them on that journey. In my mother's case, 9 years, and in my father's case, about 3 weeks. His cancer was very, very fast. But my knowledge of Alzheimer's is now deep. I've studied it. I have dear, dear friends who are trying to find the cure. Dr. Karen Ash outside of the University of Minnesota. And I have come to this conclusion. It is a thicket of terror. It is nothing that you can imagine Alzheimer's is. It is not the quiet old people doddering to their death. It is crawling into a thicket that is ever darkening. And what it did to all of us was just, well, it just fractured the entire family, and I'm one of 8 children. Dad, on the other hand, was very fast, just like Dad. 3 weeks, I'm out. He said to the doctor, what are you talking about? The doctor said, I can give you a little bit of quality of life. And my father said, is that a year? And the doctor said, no, it's a couple of weeks. And my father said, forget it. Kitten, let's go home and have a cocktail. Home we went. We had several cocktails. And I got to say to him, how are you feeling? You're going to die. And he looked at me and he said, you know, Kitten, I don't fear death, but I don't welcome it either. And 2 weeks later, he was dead. Really great way. Great way to die. Alzheimer's is the worst way to die. And what was the second part of your question?
All of that affected your career. Because in the book, you talk about
how did it Yeah, well, I had to make a decision about my father's death. I had to leave the road. I was playing Katharine Hepburn in Tea at 5 at the time, and I left the road. And, of course, you lose a lot of money, and you have to pay that money back. But I wasn't going to miss that. I had missed other moments in my life, the deaths of 2 sisters, because I was working. And there's no excuse for that. There is no work on earth more important, with the possible exception of being the President of the United States, more important than bearing witness to the life of someone you have deeply loved. So I did it to forgive myself and to share with whoever wants to read the book about the grief of a grown woman unable to do anything except assist in the process, which I did with, I would say, my whole heart and soul. I loved my parents. And I tire sometimes of the complaints I hear about parents. I tire of them. Do you know? There are parents. That's what you have. They gave us life. And in my case, I had dramatic, charming, witty, unusual parents, eccentric, and loved them madly. So thanks for that question. Thank you very much. Who else has a question? Oh, that's Dan. There's a lady here. She's standing.
Hi. I was just wondering if you've found any inspiration from the really strong women in Irish history. I know you've spent a lot of time there. I'm thinking especially of the Pirate Queen from the 17th century. You might know of her, or Queen Maeve, who's the fictitious one, or just Irish women in general that, you know, led really strong lives, had huge families, and, you know, did what they did.
Yes, I have. You know, I have, of course. I think the history of Ireland, and especially Irish mythology, is particularly rich in strong women the Brons and the Maeves and the Bridgets, the saints, the mystics and the sinners. Yes, but I mean, I've never drawn a character from them. I've left that to my own imagination. But it's a very, very rich pool, isn't it? I'm on my way back to Ireland. I can't wait. But thanks. That's a good question. Anybody else? Sir.
Kate, Gabby has a question over here. Gabby?
Dan. Gabby. Who's Gabby? You keep saying Gabby, so finally I found Gabby. Hi, Gabby.
Hi. Hi.
Hi. Speak up a little bit, please.
Okay. Hi. I just became a fan not too long ago, around maybe 2 or 3 years ago, because I watched you. It came about that I had kind of binge watched you when my father passed away. I was 15. I'm 17 now. And you just became like that kind of safe space and that kind of motherly figure and that role that I didn't have when I lost my dad. I found in you, and I just want to thank you for that, because
get her, somebody.
I'm sorry.
Get her. If I offered you comfort, Gabby, that makes me very happy.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's what you're saying to me, right? Something about my portrayal of Janeway gave you solace in a time of great grief. I've heard this before, and I'm very grateful to you, darling, because look what it cost you. Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing to share with us all, because most people don't have the courage to express their grief. Do you know? You're afraid it will be interpreted as shame. It's not. Yours is a profound sadness. Do you have a question, or is this just a reflection?
I just, you put so much of, it seems that you put so much of yourself in Janeway. Does that translate over to Red or Mary Ryan or that sort of...
Well, I'll tell you something straight. The camera doesn't lie. The difference between the camera and the stage is vast. I can portray a man on the stage and get away with it, right? I can portray a young child on the stage equally successfully. But the camera is a clinical instrument, and it recognizes you for who you are essentially. I am essentially a strong woman with ideas of my own. I lead with that. Obviously, I lead with that in an audition room or an interview room. So all those roles have that same quality in common. And I think that's why. But Janeway was another thing entirely. I mean, the story of how I got Janeway is rather, harrowing. I didn't get the part. Geneviève Bujold, the great French-Canadian actress, got the part. Great actress. But after about a day, everybody knows I'm exaggerating just a tiny bit. After about a day, she called the producers into her trailer and she said, I don't know what do you think I am. I mean, this is inhuman. I've been on here for 18 hours, and all I get to say is, engage. I have to go. I have a child. I have a life. It's not going to happen here. Au revoir, bonne chance. And she was gone. And they brought about 4 of us back. And that was a tough afternoon, because I knew it was the last call. Thank you, Gabby. Thank you very much, darling. I want everybody to recognize that took her great courage. I'm grateful to you for that. And don't think I don't know it. Thank you, sweetheart. And yes, you should cry. You should cry. We miss the ones we love. We miss our mothers. Indeed, we do. But in this room, they had 4, and I had the flu. The other 3 did not have the flu. I had the flu, and I walked in, and the casting director looked at me and she said, Kate, I'm going to put you, not because of the flu, she said, I'm just going to put you in a separate room. And the other 3 went, and she led me into another room, and I wondered why, because there was no preferential treatment. There was no even suggestion that I was going to get it over them. But I went in and I sat, and the other 3 were taken first, and I was called last. And I went in, and it was a horseshoe of about 50 people, 1 woman. Paramount Brass, UPN Brass, and Rick Berman, the whole group who ran Star Trek, and Jerry Taylor, the only female executive producer. Hi, I haven't seen you in a million years. How are you? And I went in, I made no apology for the fact that I had 102 temperature. And I did the monologue, the opening monologue on the bridge. We're lost in an uncharted part of the universe. Did the whole thing. Then they brought Tim Russ in, and we did a scene. And at the end of it, I want to say I tapped him on his and winked. But I know that walking out the door, I turned and said thank you and did wink at Rick Berman. I left, and I thought, that's it, I didn't get it. I have the flu. I winked, I smiled, I did the bop. And 3 days passed. It was Yom Kippur in Hollywood, where everything just goes dead, right? The Jewish holiday. And on the third day, I came home from the grocery store, and my 2 young sons and the nanny were standing on the front porch on their, say, come, Mom, hurry, hurry, get to the phone, get to the phone. And in those days, you had the message machine, right? And I played it, and it said, this is Rick Berman, and I just wanted to say, welcome aboard, Captain. You begin Monday morning at 6 a.m. And that was it. That was it. It was really an extraordinary year, and 7 years. You must know, you're here, that it redefined my entire life. I'm a trained actress. I mean, I trained in conservatory to be a real, actress who could play any kind of role in the theater and any kind of role on film. But Captain Janeway changed it in every way. I wouldn't have thought in a million years this would be a part that I would get. I was at a wedding reception once, and I heard this buzz, 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 buzz. I said, what is everybody talking about? Captain Picard is here, Captain Picard. I said, who? Jean-Luc Picard, don't you know from Star Trek? I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. Now I know what they were talking about. And it has this sort of unending reverberation of positivity, of strength, of intelligence. What I've learned, and I'm not kidding you, I'm not going to blow smoke because life's too short and I'm getting older. This is the most intelligent fan community in the world. We're sharing, when I stand up here to talk to you, I know that we're going to talk about ideas. We'll have a laugh. Of course we're going to have a laugh. It's all silly, right? But underneath it all, it's not silly at all. Quite serious and wonderfully provocative and very forward-leaning. So anybody who's a Trekker, I know immediately is loyal, smart, forward-leaning, prescient, and usually quite noble. So you're a very good group. I just want to say that to you. Do you want to have a question? No, she's just holding her mother. Yes, ma'am, over there. Poor Dan. Well, you'll lose a few pounds.
Yeah, I need my cardio. Thank you.
He's over there. Yes, he's coming.
Oh.
Yeah, how did you feel when you were playing Kate, the Kate?
Kate Hepburn.
In T at 5. How did you feel when you were doing that? It's like, I'm thinking I would be like, oh, expletive.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I was trying to be nice. There are small children in here. I saw a couple.
Oh dear.
How am I going to play this woman who is Kate?
How was it to play Katharine Hepburn? It was offered to me in the last season of Voyager. A man came to my dressing room and knocked on the door, and he was holding a vast array of calla lilies, and he got down on his knees and he says, I am begging you to play Katharine Hepburn. One-woman show. I never left the stage. Well, I did leave the stage. But in the first act, I was 26, having just gotten Philadelphia Story produced. And in the second act, I was 84, directly after the car accident that affected her life. So you just say it all. I mean, I locked myself in a room for a year. That's what it felt like. I watched every movie at least 6 times. I read every book I could get my hands on. And then I went deeper. I followed every sort of highway and byway that I could, the threads of her life that were still in question. Did Spencer Tracy really love her, or was it an arranged Hollywood marriage? Who was Spencer Tracy when he wasn't with Katharine Hepburn? What did Katharine Hepburn have to say about her brothers, her sisters, her mother, her father, the death of her brother, Dick, who she found hanging in the attic at the age of 14? She had to cut him down. I mean, and how would she have reacted to that? And how would she have done it on the stage? How would I have said? And I went into the room and he was hanging. And I had to cut him down. I had to find all of that. And that took a long, long time. I will say, however, that the younger Kate was harder than the older Kate. Very hard to do all that. Nobody talks like that in the United States of America. Absolutely nobody. She was from Hartford, Connecticut. So she was affected, right? A little English, a little South, a little Hartford, a little But it really worked out there in Hollywood. Everybody loved to hear her talk. She never closed her mouth, and she just told everybody where the hell they could go. She was the first person to tell Louis B. Mayer, you're going to do it my way or you're not going to do it. And he did it. And that was Philadelphia's story. And the second act is, of course, her reflections on her life. Tough dad, honorable mother, her love for Dickie. And she ended up alone in Old Saybrook. And I'll tell you a story that I alone came across because an actress, Dorothy Danville, what was her name? Great Hollywood screen actress, came to my dressing room after playing Tea at 5 one night. You all would know who, Dorothy Lamour. And she said, that was a wonderful performance, Miss Mulgrew. I want you to know that I knew Kate. And I visited Kate when she was very close to the end of her life. I said, you did? And she said, I went out to Saybrook, where she was living with her brother. And the maid answered the door, and I said, I'm here to see Kate. I'm Dorothy Lamour. And she said, come with me. And up the steps we went. The door was ajar, and she pushed it open. And there was Kate in a wheelchair, looking out the window over the Sound. And I entered a few feet, and I said, Kate, it's me, Dorothy. And she turned from the window. Shh, I am trying to solve a puzzle. And that's all she said. And those may well have been the last words she ever spoke. So I'm going to say this about Hepburn. I don't know how happy she was. I'm going to bet she wasn't very happy. But boy, she sure was a star. One of the best, right? And I loved playing her. That was great. But nobody came close to Janeway in terms of discipline. You've heard it all. You've heard it all from the guys. 18 hours a day, 5 days a week, and often 6 days for me because I had to do press, endless press the first 2 seasons. And sometimes I'd have to stay overnight because I'd have to do, something in New York, so I'd have to stay overnight and do it live at 3 o'clock, and it was just a burnout. So it was a fantastic lesson to me, about me, and that is that my reserves of vitality were infinite. Even when I thought there's no way I can do this another moment, I did it. And I think I did it fairly well. So if you love something, you find the way. And as arduous as it was, as laborious as it was, as challenging and frightening, you don't think when I walked out on that bridge the first day with Rick Colby saying to me in the ready room, that's your living room. When the ready room door opens, you go out and you own it. And I saw all those guys in suits like this. You don't think? And I just thought, where's that little kid? Hold her ears. Screw those guys. I said, I'm going to show you now. And it was a long monologue, if you guys remember. And I did it. And there was not a word said. And I knew then that I'd win you over, the men especially, but that it was going to take time and they gave me the time. They gave me 7 years. It was good. It was great. Yes, sir. Do you have a question? Just use your booming voice.
Yeah, you've given us so many incredible roles, obviously from Janeway to Orange is the New Black to the time you murdered somebody on that on a plane on that Murder, She Wrote episode, an incredible episode if you've not seen it.
I got to play the killer. Loved it.
You did. I got many times and very well. So my question really is: are we going to? You don't have to give us anything more, but is there anything on the horizon, acting-wise, that we could see you giving us, another stellar performance?
A part?
Yeah.
Something? Yes, this is why I agreed to do this. In part, agreed to do this convention because I thought I would be here. I've been living in Philly for a year.
What?
Yeah. The strike interrupted it, but I was doing a series for Apple TV, Ridley Scott's series.
Oh, fabulous.
Sinking Spring.
Wonderful.
And I play the de facto mother to Brian Tyree Henry, who
fabulous.
is, as you may know, a great young black actor. I had fallen, I was a hooker in my youth. This is true. I was a hooker in my youth and had fallen in love with my pimp, played by Ving Rhames. Do you know who Ving Rhames is?
Oh, yeah.
Ving Rhames is incarcerated within 3 or 4 years of our affair, and he leaves behind the 7-year-old whose natural mother had died of a heroin overdose. So I look at the kid and I say, "Well, it's you and me, kid. You can come, you can live, we can try. 2's better than 1, no?" He says, "Yes," and he grew up with me. I raised him. One day, we live in South Philly. He gets a DEA cap, he steals it, a DEA vest, right? He and his best friend get the swag, and they go and they start to do small scams into meth labs, into drug houses. They get $1,000 here, they get a couple of grand there, they get some, some dope there. Just enough to sort of skim the surface. Until one day they're given a tip. Go outside of Philly. There's a small town called Sinking Spring. There's a house there. I'll give you the directions. It's a meth lab. It's a gold mine. Easy peasy. Well, he goes with his DEA cap and his best friend too, and they go in, but they go into the wrong house. This is the biggest cartel owner on the eastern seaboard. And fire opens, 16 people are shot dead. The whole thing explodes. Cost $50 million to shoot that pilot. We shot it twice. And from that moment forward, he is told by a disembodied voice that comes through his car radio, "I know who you love, and one by one, I'm going to find them, and I'm going to destroy them." So he loves me most. And it's the story of how he protects us and gets us away. And everything, they're always on our tail, and it's fascinating. Beautifully written by Peter Craig, directed by Ridley Scott, the pilot, and it's got free productions. And then after the strike, I came back and lived here, 17th and Chestnut. Had a ball. Yeah, it was great.
Oh my God! Well, come to Tavern Mac, the piano bar. We'd love to have you there. Come on.
All right, you got it. Yes, sir, ma'am, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
So I had questions about Prodigy. Do you have any...
about what?
Star Trek Prodigy. I love the
Prodigy.
show.
I have a question about Prodigy.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yes, I was going to ask you that. Do you know?
But I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
Paramount Plus had it.
Yeah.
And then Paramount Plus canceled 45 of its shows, just sort of systematically and rather ruthlessly, I think. And the fans were so irate. Were you among them, you little devil? I'm going to come down there and give you a kiss if you were. They did a fundraiser, and they got a little plane, and they did a banner saying, "Save Prodigy," and they flew it over Netflix and over one or two of the other studios, but they really flew it again and again around Netflix, and a week later, Netflix bought it. So Netflix has it, but I don't know if the second season has been aired yet. They haven't. They're what? Well, that was a mistake. I understand that wasn't. Quai Français, right? It was a mistake. How did the French get a hold of it? But anyway, have you heard anything about the second season? No. I go to you guys because more often than not, you know more than I do about what's going on.
Prodigy's a beautiful show.
I would love them to pick it up for another season. I think it's a great. Bob's in it. I would love to get the whole cast and crew back if I could. So, go and say we want Prodigy. It's great. It's great. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, Kate. So I'm reading this for my niece because she's unable to speak.
I understand.
Janeway has been a huge thing for me, especially her relationship with 7 of 9, because I relate to 7, and I was wondering if you enjoyed the kind of parent-child relationship there.
And you'll have to repeat the last part of that, I hear. She enjoys the relationship between Janeway and 7 of 9, and could I answer what?
Because she relates to 7.
She relates to 7, I understand.
And she was wondering if you enjoyed the kind of parent-child relationship there.
Oh, undoubtedly, you've read about everything about 7 of 9. Beautifully played by Jerry Ryan. Did I enjoy the relationship? Very much. And I understand why you would relate to 7 of 9. She was half Borg, half human. And we often, all of us, struggle with the part of ourselves that we don't understand as well as the part of ourselves that we do understand. And we're always trying to solve those riddles. I loved helping to solve them with her. She was an interesting dude, 7 of 9. I'm sure you've all heard the story, and it's true, that I wasn't delighted. I wasn't delighted that they cashed in that chip, because obviously they needed some sex. Men love sex. There's not a denial in this room. And I wasn't going to give them any sex. I went to the producers very early on and said, I'm still of childbearing years, and I will not let that interfere with my captaincy. That's the surefire way to lose the demographic, the male demographic, by going into the ready room and saying red alert. You know what I mean? No. So we had to do it other ways. And then they came to me and they said, Jen Lean is out, and we're bringing in a new actress to play this character called 7 of 9. But I didn't expect what I saw, which was absolutely, and without exaggeration, va-va-va-voo, right? From her boots to that. And then I just knew, and I thought, oh, I have to be honest. My first feeling was deflation. Janeway's not enough, right? This captaincy, this female captaincy is not enough without something to pick it up visually, sexually. But as it turns out, it was a fascinating story that developed between 7 of 9 and particularly Janeway. Beautifully written by Brannon Braga, who fell in love with her subsequently. But I have nothing now but respect and admiration for her. In the first weeks and even months, I think it was hard for me. But I'm only human. And it was my ship, after all. And I did allow her aboard. So I understand why you relate to her, darling. You relate to all the good things that 7 of 9 brought. And that's correct. Yes, you. Pretty woman.
Thank you.
A woman's place is what?
Is on the bridge.
Very good.
So I have a question, but I wanted to follow up on the Prodigy thing first. So Netflix hasn't announced when season 2 will come out. So they've said sometime this year, but they haven't said when.
They have.
So we're waiting eagerly.
Okay. Wow.
My question was, so I was 5 when Voyager came out, so I've been watching it
You
since
were 5?
then. I was 5.
Is this your daughter?
This is my daughter. She just turned 6.
And is this the culprit calling himself your husband?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So she started watching Voyager when she was 3. Now she watches Prodigy and loves it.
She has absolutely no idea who I am. She's good. Children are utterly visual. If you're not wearing the costume and the bun of steel, they don't know.
No,
she's looking at me, and you know what she's thinking? Why am I here?
She saw you this morning and ran down the hallway to me and said, I saw Captain Janeway.
Oh, she did. Oh, I see. So you're a little fickle because this afternoon you're not on fire. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know that it looks like Prodigy's up in the air.
Yeah, well, it'll be here soon. It'll be here. Okay. So my question was, I grew up watching Voyager, and I know you've said a lot over the years about how your captaincy affected, women and, girls and boys growing up. I was wondering, now that you're doing Prodigy, I know it's been so important to you to address the new generation of children. And I was wondering if you had any words of advice for her and for all the other, girls and boys that are watching you now in the next generation.
Words of wisdom?
Yes.
Watch. When your mommy or your dad turn on the TV, say, nothing but Prodigy. Repeat after me. Nothing but Prodigy. When your mom and your dad are having a fight, I want you to say very loudly, stand up, do this and say, Star Trek Voyager now.
She actually does. She does very that. Good. If I'm upset, she'll say, do you want to watch Voyager? I do.
All right. You know what you have to do. Prodigy, Voyager, nothing else. Nothing else. Or I will learn about it. All right, who else? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say a little tribute to you. I work for an accounting firm. We're national, international. We have 3,000 employees, and I became the treasurer of our women's business resource group to try to break the glass ceiling and promote promotions for women in the firm. And on my profile, they asked who's my favorite female leader or role model and why. And I wrote, because I'm a Star Trek fan, Captain Kathryn Janeway of the USS Voyager is an inspirational leader to me. She's decisive, intelligent, and commands an entire ship under harrowing circumstances and finds ways to overcome immense obstacles to get her crew home. So thank you for everything you do.
Accounting, did you say? Accounting? Yeah. You're in accounting. It's Greek to me. Absolutely Greek. So you know about math and stuff like that. You know what refinancing is and stuff like that. Thank you for that lovely tribute. Yes, who? There's the poor Dan. Here, Dan, here's an extra one.
Oh, all right. Can anybody catch?
I thought you really were going to do it, and I thought, how great. He could catch it. Let him go first. Oh, no, she already had, no, you had a turn, didn't you?
No.
Oh.
So you've been a trailblazer for a lot of women, and you have played several strong, unapologetically strong women in your roles. And there's still a lot of, we've said glass ceiling, but there's a lot of sort of pigeonholing of women in the workplace, how we're expected to sort of be, that we're not supposed to be strong or speak up to speak our minds. We have to smile more. And I was just wondering if you had any advice for people like me, just in my career.
What is your career?
I work in marketing, but like my company, all of the senior leaders are still white men. And it's just really hard to even break into companies where women are leaders. It's just such a small number of people. And when you try to be a strong woman, that's not likable. So I just wondered if you had any advice for sort of breaking through that to be successful and sort of be the captain on the ship.
First, I'd ask you this. If you belonged to a club that was very exclusive, which gave you lots of money and lots of press and lots of power and lifted you up day after day after day, would you want someone to infiltrate that club? No. That's old white men for you. You see? They don't want anybody to come in. It's still very, very much alive in our world. And I'm going to say this, gentlemen, forgive me. I keep looking at the green man. I don't know why I keep... Every time I look up and say, gentlemen, I see the green man. Don't take it personally, green person. Listen to me very carefully when I say this. And believe me when I say it, because I mean it. You're every bit as strong as any man you will ever meet. And I believe that the men, God bless them all, and you are dear, dear to a man, live in a little bit of fear. We give birth to them. We bring them up. We shelter them. We teach them how to love, how to lead, and how to go forth. The woman is, in mythology, read the Greeks, much more powerful, really, than the male. It's just that something's happened along the way and we've lost faith in ourselves. You know very well that you're a strong, powerful, smart woman, so act like one. You don't have to lose a modicum of your grace or your humor or any of it, right? We don't have to stride around saying, get the fuck out of my... Go to the little child. Prodigy, Prodigy, Star Trek Voyager, Prodigy, Prodigy. You know, you just be your essentially very strong and powerful self. I think we allow these insecurities to seep in because, yeah, they can make or break the job. They can fire us. They can make us, they can belittle us, you know? And certainly don't go online seeking men, you know, or any of that. But most of you are gay, so that's a problem. Just now, I would say, use your imagination, and when you approach a white man, a straight white man, who looks like he wants to throw his you-know-what around, just say, you're very charming, but it's not going to work. Stand aside. You've got to believe in it. But we don't, I don't know why we've lost our... You created the world. Eve took the apple, baby. Big bite, right? That's us. That's us. It's one. I wouldn't trade my gender for anything in the world. I'm a woman. I'm happy to be a woman. The griefs of a woman, the strengths of a woman, the life of a woman, the complexity of a woman, all of it. Bring it on. It's such a trip. It's a wonderful journey. Be proud of it. And when you walk up to the man, know that his journey is just about half of that. Next. I had to throw that in there just for I who adore men. Yes. Yes, sir.
Hi, Kate. I was wondering if you're still working on your fiction novel and how it's going.
Oh, yes. That's the other part of that man's question. I didn't answer it. I'm in the middle of it. I'm in the middle of it. I'm in the middle of it. I can't get out of the middle of it. This is a novel called The Irish House, based on the 5 years I spent in Ireland writing How to Forget. But while I was writing How to Forget, I was living in Uachtarart on the shores of Loch Corrib. And it was wintertime, February, March, April, dark, damp, cold, constant and unrelenting rain. And I adored it. At night, I'd light the fire, and it just brought up everything inside of me that needed to be said. So The Irish House is a psychological thriller. I think there will be a murder. There's probably a romance. But as I said, I have to have the time, and it's constantly interrupted. Constantly. I allow it to be interrupted. I suppose I should just say no, right? No to more television series, no to everything, and sit in my house and write and do nothing. What do you say? All right, I'll tell that to my publisher. All right, yes.
Say yes to conventions, Kate. Say yes to conventions. We have one last question over here, and then we have to wrap.
Last?
Don't blame me. Blame Jenna. Jenna did it.
Jenna, what's your...
Okay. I don't really have a question. I just have a comment about the character of Janeway. I was a young woman during the women's movement and equal rights, and the thing that was attractive to me in the character of Janeway is that she was able to be a woman, to have the feelings and the emotions of a woman, and still command. And she would have that struggle, women's struggles of how they think about things. But she always came through in the end. And that was very inspiring because, here's this woman. And, when you watch a show, they think, oh, she's got to go talk to a man or something to figure it out. But she could think like a woman, she could feel like a woman, and still have the command. She would pull herself together and do that. Where, in some respects, the male characters were one-dimensional in the fact that they all commanded in a certain way. They all had the same way that they thought about and how things should go. But with Voyager, it was totally different because you were able to show that you're not just a male captain in a female's body. So that was very inspiring to me, to see that there's a real woman there with all the same insecurities and feelings that every woman has, but was still able to pull herself through that. The other thing is, regarding that over there, a very wise woman told me one time that the only power anybody has over you is what you give them. And that's something to remember when somebody is like giving you a grief. You go, you have no power over me. You think about that. So
yeah, but I think about something else, and I want to say this. Here are these wonderful actresses. We forget, don't we, when we're insecure or threatened, job's on the line, somebody's not calling us back, the date failed, the divorce is imminent, the kids aren't speaking to us. We forget one very important thing. We're going to die. The brevity of life cannot be underscored enough. We forget at every turn our mortality. Employ your best self at all times, because it may be the very last self you are able to show. Living in the present means you are facing your death with great integrity, great grace, and great intelligence. So just be in the moment, and nobody can push you over. Nothing can touch you. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Kate Mulgrew, everybody.
Hi, this is Bonnie Gordon, and you're watching Fandom Spotlight. Make sure to like and subscribe before the self-destructs in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just kidding. Have fun and follow your fandom.